Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Yeah.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Banana nana. Banana nana. Na 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 na. Ooh ooh ooh.
Hello and welcome to Daddy Issues, the podcast where we talk about father and son relationships in groovy culture, baby. With me today, as always, is the grooviest, swingiest electric pussycat in the world. It's David Bryan. How are you doing, Dave? Are you groovy, baby?
Right on, brother. I'm mega groovy. I'm switched on. I'm shagadelic, man.
I have to admit, I feel a little bit bad introing the podcast like this. So I've got to throw this out there, heads up. I feel like I'm kind of if I don't, I'm stepping on toes here, because you know that two of my biggest influences in recent years have been Alexi and Cam from the Finding Drago podcast that I sent you a while ago. Finding Drago was a huge inspiration for me, and as was Finding Desperado, the sequel. But I first discovered Alexi and Cam on their podcast Mic Check. Did I ever send you Mic Check?
No, I don't know that.
Well, Mic Check was a fucking work of genius, and still is, because it's available. They didn't delete it all. But the podcast is going through the film history of one Michael Myers from start to finish to find out if he's still horny, baby. And each episode is the two of them going through another Michael Myers film, but another Mike Myers, not another Michael Myers film.
Because there's lots of Halloweens you could go through if you were doing a Michael Myers thing.
I think they've done that. They've done that on one of the series of their other podcast, Total Reboot, which is always worth checking out as well. But yes, Mic Check was great, and it was horny, and it was brilliant. And the episode of Austin Powers is 100% worth listening to. So before we talk about Austin Powers, I've got to pay homage to the kings of Mike Myers before I go in there. Dave's doing his little respect, you know. I'm gonna. Yeah, I did
it though, like to the heavens as if they're dead, but they're not. They're just in Australia, so that maybe it's like upside down.
No, I was gonna pour one out for the homies. While I'm here as well, because they're down under.
And one for my homies.
Exactly, that's going down to them in Sydney. Austin Powers. We're only doing the first one today because throughout the Austin Powers series, there's a couple of father-son relationships that kind of appear, but we're here to establish and talk about the first one, the first daddy issue, like the most us daddy issue, which is Dr. and Scott Evil. Yeah, I can. People can't see, but I can see how much you're smiling about this.
I'm smiling. I can give you a sort of a behind-the-scenes reason why I'm smiling. So I record these in my spare room, which is often where like stuff gets dumped, and I'm sat on the spare bed, and there's always laundry hanging up. And on the clothes area right now in front of me is my Buffy the Vampire Slayer t-shirt, circa season 2, and there looking at me upside down is Seth Green as Oz in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy being one of my favourite things ever to be made, and Oz is always one of my favourite characters, and Seth Green himself is kind of just not everything he's done, I don't know everything he's done, but so much of what he's done I go, I fucking love Seth Green. He's just great. Yes,
I am very fortunate as well, because you have changed your Skype background to Dr. and Scott Evil from the therapy scene, which as I mentioned before the pod, I think is one of the greatest scenes in movie history. But we can't jump straight into that. We've got to build up to it before we get there. So your relationship with Austin Powers, obviously, when did it come out? 97, I think.
97.
You would have been about 25, I guess, when it came out in 97. Right?
You're a nasty person.
That is true. I am. I'm a real batard.
Batard. A bar steward.
Yes, exactly.
Fortunately, no, I'm not insecure about my age. I'm happy to age. Only because here's my plan, right? My plan is to will
Die?
myself.
Oh.
No, not quite the opposite, but at least I'm pushing that back. So my plan is to emulate through sheer force of will the life cycle of the Wolverine. So I plan to age until I'm about 40, and I'm basing this off sort of comics kind of, but more Hugh Jackman. So I want to look like a 40-year-old Hugh Jackman, and then to stop physically aging, and then just live for about 300 years, maybe, give or take, just to give me enough time to do all the things I want to do and, experience life to its fullest. Maybe fight in a few wars, maybe go through some invasive experimentation, but ultimately go through the full gamut of love and loss and violence and peace at some point, and, spend a few decades reading a lot of books and listening to all the albums I want to listen to. And then after a few centuries of looking like a peak hairy-chested Hugh Jackman, I'll just decide that it's over somehow. I don't know. Maybe I'll carry an adamantium bullet with me wherever I go. Although I'm not made of adamantium, so that part is irrelevant. I don't know how. I might have to lie my neck down on a railroad track or something.
So back to Austin Powers.
Oh shit! Sorry. Yeah. I get carried away with my
after
Wolverine
you've just
fantasy.
had your head run over on a railway track, let's get back to talking about the light-hearted 1997 spy comedy Austin Powers International Man of Mystery, starring, of course, the Canadian comedy legend Mr. Mike Myers. Oh, Mr. Mike Myers.
Oh, Mr. Mike Myers.
As our super shagadelic protagonist, Austin Powers, and his evil counterpart, Dr. Evil. So, to get back to my earlier question, when you were about 53 years old in 1997, what was your memory of Austin Powers? How did you first kind of come across it? Did you watch it at the time, or was it like 5 years later that you were like, what is this?
Well, I was 10 years old when this film came out.
Okay.
And I don't remember the cinema release particularly, but I think I became aware of it when it got a home release, because there would have been kids at my school whose parents were a bit more lax in their rules around what films their kids could watch, and there were kids coming to school saying they'd seen this brilliant film and how funny it was and whatever. So, yeah, baby, and these kind of catchphrases were being thrown around during my school life in the late 90s, but I would have been kept at an arm's length from anything like that. So I think I didn't really. I think I went to see Goldmember at the cinema when it came out, but that's only after I'd seen the first two on video or someone's DVD, probably quite close to to when that third one came out. But no, other than that, I was an alien to it when it first arrived. How about you?
Yes, I would have been 6, I guess, when the first one came out. So Goldmember was the first one that I also saw in the cinema. And this movie is a good one to bring up in terms of daddy issues, because me and my dad have a pretty long relationship with Austin Powers and watching Austin Powers. And me and my dad went to see Goldmember in the cinema together when it came out. And I have a good memory of the two of us finding it very funny in Goldmember when Dr. Evil has a submarine in the shape of himself and bubbles come out of his butthole, and we in the cinema thought that was rather hilarious.
Undoubtedly, it is hilarious.
Yes, so Goldmember, a movie we're gonna have to get onto, because that guy loves gold. And,
I've heard that.
Yeah, I've heard that about him.
But wasn't there an unfolding schmelting accident that is formative in his origins? as a super
There
villain.
was. But today, we're not here to talk about
Okay.
the unfortunate smelting accident that the melted
That's all
Goldmember's
conjecture
member.
at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, just where to begin with Austin Powers, because it's
interesting that you have that relationship with your dad, because like I say, my parents kept me at arm's length, but then I watched it with my girlfriend last night, and then her dad called in the middle of the movie, so he paused the film and he just had to ask. He was struggling to download Zoom and he needed technical support. So
We've all been there.
And but then my girlfriend was very excited to say, we're watching Austin Powers International Man of Mystery, and because that was something they shared a lot when they were kids. It's a film that he found hilarious and would play all the time, and my girlfriend and her sister didn't really get it for a while, but their dad would always put it on, and it wasn't until they got to their sort of teens where they sort of started to appreciate it.
I think it's one of those movies that in a lot of the ways you could compare to The Simpsons, where, you know, with The Simpsons, where it's got comedy for all ages hidden at different layers within it. This is the good Simpsons I'm talking about. None of this, you know. The Simpsons are like your favourite band. You know, like, they did the first album and it was a little bit rough, but then, like, the next couple of albums after that, you're like, that's the good shit. And then they got old. And getting old really, you know.
Yeah, I do find that with, because a lot of the bands from like that I loved from the 90s and early 2000s were really angsty and sad and angry, and their music of when they were in their 20s was very much of that ilk, and it was powerful, and I really liked it. And then they all got old into their 40s and 50s and had families and got happy, but yet carried on making music, and it's just not as fun. Or rather, it's too fun, and now I don't like it so much anymore.
There was something I saw about Dave Grohl the other day that said the new Foo Fighters album had just come out, and the review said something like, Dave Grohl continues to walk the line of clean, family-friendly music that I hate, whilst being a man that is impossible to dislike. And I think it was something like that. It was like, I can't hate Dave Grohl because he's so lovely, but he can't make good music anymore because he's so lovely. And I thought, fuck you, I love Dave Grohl. But then the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, when was the last time I bought a Foo Fighters album? And it was a while ago. But,
I think for me it was probably In Your Honor, like 2003.
See, that was a good one. That had angst. That was an angsty album.
It had sadness too, because it was a double album, wasn't it? The second disc was all acoustic, sad stuff, and there was a song about Kurt Cobain on there.
Well, even Best of You. Best of You's it's a heartbreaking rock. Why are we talking about this? Right, Austin Powers. Austin Powers. Yeah, it's got that same kind of humour as The Simpsons, whereby it's, if you are an adult, then you can enjoy the joke about the ritualistically shaved scrotum. And if you're a smaller child, you can enjoy the fact that bubbles come out of the submarine's butthole. And there's kind of all of the humour is childish, but it's different levels of perception. And I think, for me, one of the cleverest jokes in the movie, possibly the best written joke in the movie, is just after Austin Powers has had sex with a lot of vagina, and what's her name? Vanessa
Kensington, yeah.
Vanessa, yeah. Vanessa says, "Did you at least use protection?" And he's like, "Of course, I had my Walter 9mm." She said, "No, a condom." He goes, "Baby, only sailors use condoms." And she says, "Not in the 90s, Austin." And he says, "Well, they better do, those dirty buggers. They go from port to port." And that is the best written joke in, like...
That's such like a classic traditional comedy, like set-up punchline joke.
Yes.
Really like falling into that whole thing about this being a homage, like British comedy from the 60s, Peter Sellers and stuff. That's exactly the kind of joke. But it really makes me laugh still.
My God. It's just such a brilliant... But if you're not of a certain age, you're not going to find it funny, right? But when he farts in the hot tub, comedy gold.
And he does the, pardon me for being rude, it was not me, it was my food. It just popped up to say hello, and now it's gone back down below. Which is something that me and my brother used to do at the dinner table when we were kids. And so however old I was when I finally saw this, I was like, that's the thing, I can relate to this.
There's one thing we have to avoid, and that's just not repeating all of the jokes from Austin Powers.
But we could just do a line-a-rama for this, couldn't we?
This is one of those movies that I could probably sit down and do from start to finish. You know, like... and the second one even more so, I think. Maybe I watched the second one more than this one. But I think I maybe borrowed the second one on DVD and then just kept it. You know, those kind of things that it used to be as a kid. Oh no, I borrowed your X-Men comic and never gave it back. It was one of those kinds
Too
of
good
things.
to return.
Yeah. So, Scott and Dr. Evil. What do you think of their relationship, first of all? So explain the story of Scott and Dr. Evil to us as the audience.
Okay. So Dr. Evil super genius, froze himself in the 1960s to escape his arch nemesis Austin Powers, and gets thawed out again in the 90s. But while he's been gone, his henchmen, as part of a program I think that was planned, they had stored part of his spermatozoa, I believe, and created him a son while he's been absent. So I think Frau Farbissina, Dr. Evil's right-hand woman, says that they only managed to wait a couple of years before they got a bit impatient and decided to go for it. So you have to assume Scott is about in his late 20s at this point.
I don't know. From the music that he's listening to and stuff, I reckon he's late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, and it's Seth Green, like late 90s Seth Green, so he looks about 20 at the most. Yeah. So maybe you can take over the pinch of salt the couple of years that Frau Farbissina says they waited. But in either case, he's very adolescent in his behaviour. And upon Dr. Evil re-entering the world and launching a new plan for world domination, he's also learned that he has a son that he's got to meet for the first time, and vice versa. Scott has been raised within an evil organization and he's just meeting his dad for the first time, and his dad wants to have a relationship with him, and Scott's like, I think he even says, like, you've been gone my entire life and you come back all of a sudden and you want a relationship? I hate you. and it is very much a bit of like a Kevin and Perry angry teenager, just pissed off, but then I think fairly rightly. And it's funny that this is in like a spoofy spy comedy, when I think their relationship is actually quite poignant. And there will be people who watch this who go, yeah, I didn't meet my dad until I was in I was already an adult, and then we had to try and forge a relationship, and it was difficult. And it's, yeah, I know the group therapy session that you talked about is a hilarious scene, but I kind of was a bit touched that they're willing to do this. You know, like Dr. Evil's like gone to this session with his son in order for them to bond again, under the auspices of Scott one day taking over the family business, as he says. But you know, they're there and they're trying, and that's kind of sweet. Yes,
there is part of it where both of them do actually want to make this work to some extent. Like when that first scene with Dr. Evil where he sees his son, it's not like, oh, he's such a disappointment, right? It's not like, I thought that you'd look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, not like this weedy motherfucker, right? It's like he sees his son and it's like, come and give your old man a hug, right? And he instantly wants to take part in, like, he instantly wants to be a dad and like show him how to be the evil, to be an evil genius. He wants to take him under his wing, right? But then that teenage rebellion, like, no, I don't even want to know you, I hate you, I'm listening to Nirvana and and whatever. It's that that typical father-son barrier that's there, like, let me in, son. No, I won't even, but caught within the auspices of this absolutely insane, ridiculous situation. But when we do get to the group therapy, you do have that bit where Scott does want to open himself up, to the relationship. And it's like, but every time he opens himself up, it's like, I think maybe I want to be a vet or work in a petting zoo. An evil vet? An evil petting zoo? Like that. And every time he opens himself up, Dr. Evil tries to insert himself into his son's personality and kind of and control it. But all of this is hidden within this absolutely ridiculous premise that's really, really quite brilliant.
Yeah, there's something great about it, I think, in trying to examine the development of a young man who grows up without a father figure at all. And obviously they're not going to go into a great amount of backstory of Scott's upbringing unless they do the Austin Powers 4, which has been rumoured for years, which I hope would be Scott becoming the ultimate villain of the piece, which would be hilarious, especially if he carries on. Oh, we can't jump too far ahead. I'm sorry. How a young man develops without a father figure, because I presume he was raised by Frau, kind of as a single mum. I know number 2's been around this entire time, but he doesn't seem to have any kind of relationship with Scott. So comparing how Scott has turned into a man versus Dr. Evil, his father, when we get to see a bit of Dr. Evil gives the backstory of his life, which he thinks is perfectly normal, when in fact it's batshit crazy, and that's how he turned out.
Yes, I think now is a very good time to bring up the therapy session.
We're already there.
In all its glory. I don't feel like we can do it justice, though. So I reckon that we should play the entire group therapy session in this video right now.
Deal.
Okay, give in to the beauty of your feelings and say the words. Come on.
I love you, Dad. I love you too, son.
That's a breakthrough.
Okay, group, we have some newcomers here today with us. Say hello to Scott and his father, Mr. Avil?
Evil, actually. Dr. Evil.
Hello, Dr. Evil. Hello, Scott.
Hello, everybody.
So, Scott, why don't we start with you? What brings you here with us today?
Well, I just really met my dad for the first time 5 days ago.
I was partially frozen his whole life.
That is beautiful that you can admit to that.
He comes back, and now he wants me to take over the family business.
But, Scott, who's gonna take over the world when I die?
Listen to the words he used. Who's going to take over the world when I die? Feels like that to some of us sometimes, doesn't it? So, what do you want to do, Scott?
I don't know. I was thinking I like animals. Maybe I'd be a vet.
An evil vet?
No. Maybe like work in a petting zoo.
An evil petting zoo?
You always do that! I just think like he hates me. I really think he wants to kill me.
Now, Scott, we don't want to kill each other in here. We might say that we do sometimes, but we really don't.
Actually, the boy's quite astute. I really am trying to kill him, but so far unsuccessfully. He's quite wily like his old man.
This is what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, we've heard from you, Scott. Now, you tell us a little about yourself.
The details of my life are quite inconsequential.
Oh, no, please, please. Let's hear about your childhood.
Okay. Very well. Where do I begin? My father was a relentlessly self-improving boulangerie owner from Belgium with low-grade narcolepsy and a penchant for buggery. My mother was a 15-year-old French prostitute named Chloe with webbed feet. My father would womanize, he would drink, he would make outrageous claims like he invented the question mark. Sometimes he would accuse chestnuts of being lazy, the sort of general malaise that only the genius possess and the insane lament. My childhood was typical. Summers in Rangoon, luge lessons. In the spring, we'd make meat helmets. When I was insolent, I was placed in a burlap bag and beaten with reeds. Pretty standard, really. At the age of 12, I received my first scribe. At the age of 14, as a roastery named Vilma ritualistically shaved my testicles. There really is nothing like a shorn scrotum. It's breathtaking. I suggest you try it.
You know, we have to stop.
Amazing.
Carrie
I love
Fisher. Carrie Fisher absolutely sells that scene with her performance is what makes that work in that scene, because you've got it's undoubtedly perfect delivery from Mike Myers and Seth Green there doing their respective things. But if you have a different actor playing the lead of that group therapy session who can't hit as genuinely sincere as Carrie Fisher's performance there, where she is pitch fucking perfect sincerity with listen to his words there. Who's gonna take after the world when I die? It can feel like that to some of us sometimes. She's just spot on, absolutely. And then it's her calm ocean of a performance that allows Mike Myers to stand up and start talking about his Sean scrotum, and it works like just perfectly, absolutely perfectly, in what I think is one of the best written scenes for Carrie Fisher's performance as well. Just that one of the perfect scenes from start to finish in movies, where it's just there's not a missed line in terms of characterization, in terms of humor. Like, everything about that scene pushes them and their characters forward for like absolutely no reason as well, which is like
there's no build up to them going, let's go to therapy. It's just they're just there.
Yeah, that for some reason the supervillain and his grunge son are in a group therapy session for like absolutely no purpose at all, but it's perfect.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. It's the sincerity and believability of the therapy character is a perfect offset to the downright absurd story that's coming back the other way. And meanwhile, she's got to try and maintain, it's got to maintain this level playing field and keep everyone. And I think there's something about the fact that all the other actors in that scene, and for the whole movie actually, so many of the extras are not good at being extras. They look really stiff and like regular people. They don't look like the characters they're meant to play. And I think that makes the performances of Mike Myers and these are larger than life people even more funny. And I don't know if it could be one of those magical things that because it was the first movie and they didn't necessarily have all the budget they would have wanted, they had to hire cheap people or like get friends in to sit in the scene. And it makes it all the funnier. I don't know why, but there is just this great offset between absurd characters, sincere characters. Like Scott is kind of a sincere character in himself. He's only a bit absurd in places, but then he's actually quite logical. He makes a lot of sense in all the scenes that he's in. And then, Carrie Fisher's character is very sturdy, the safe ship and everything. Yeah, it's just such a brilliant scene. And we were just quoting it line for line as we were listening to it then, because it's just so quotable and so memorable. Yeah.
Again, that thing of there's not a beat missed in that scene. It's one of those scenes where I think, if I was going to do my GCSE drama performance again, which is like our high school drama performance when we're like 16, and because you get to choose something that you would want to perform. The two things from movies that I wish I could do would be this scene, because it's just perfect. If I was going to play a character, I don't know which one I would want to play in this scene. Obviously, the dream is to be Dr. Evil, so you get to have the monologue at the end, which is just superb in every way. It's that thing now where in trying to describe it, I just want to endlessly quote it. Because like you're saying, just that end monologue is just it's just perfect again. But it would I'd want to do that one, and I'd want to do the end sequence from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the high school history performance, right? Like if I was going to do my GCSE drama again, that would be one of the ones I'd want to do, where you get you get everyone to dress up, like you get one person to dress up as Abraham Lincoln, and then we go through and do that whole scene for your high school performance. Would be like, yeah.
Would you direct that scene, or would you have to be in it? Let's say if it was for your GCSE, do you have to appear in it too?
Oh yeah, if I was 16, I would have wanted to have been in that scene for sure.
So who would you have cast yourself as?
Well, assuming that I chose to have done it, I would have either been Bill or Ted, I assume.
Okay.
Because I would have... It would have been me, probably, and my friend Alex, who we would have respectively done Bill and Ted together.
Yeah, I can see you're Bill then, in that scenario.
And Alex,
I know Alex a bit.
Yeah, Alex would have been Ted at that point.
Also, so 16-year-old you would have been a good Bill. You now would have been a great Sigmund Freud. And I was gonna say, if I was gonna cast you in the therapy scene in Austin Powers, I would give you the Carrie Fisher role.
Oh, that's very nice.
You do that well. You'd hold that whole scene together. I think you'd probably do any of the roles if they were given to you. But I think the straight sincerity, I think you could pull off really well.
Yeah, I think to go on to Bill and Ted, which we're going to do a whole episode on at some point. The one of the absolute highlights of Bill and Ted is the Sigmund Freud in the police station, and the police officer, the police officer is, why do you keep insisting that you're Sigmund Freud? Why do you keep insisting that I'm not Sigmund Freud? This is ridiculous. Tell me about your mother. It's just pitch perfect. Just again.
Amazing.
Yeah, and again that Sigmund Freud bit at the end of the end scene, where Sigmund Freud points to Bill and says, "Bill, would you like to sit on the chair next?" And Bill goes, "No, thank you. Just have a minor Oedipal complex." Again, one of those jokes. Those jokes only for us.
Only for the grown-ups. That one. Yeah, I don't think I got that joke until like the 10th time I'd watched that film, because that is one of the staple movies of my childhood. I've seen it so many times, and again, I just like The Simpsons and probably of Austin Powers. I loved it for what I could take from it as a more immature person, but then as I matured, it just kept giving. The jokes just are hidden there from you until you're old enough to appreciate them, and then it's like you're watching it for the first time.
Yeah, that is a good similarity between Bill and Ted and Austin Powers as well, is that both of them have what I've kind of come to think of as intelligent, dumb comedy, where you watch it and you think, oh, that's so stupid, but it's so cleverly put together that the dumb joke hinges on the fact that the writers and the directors and the actors are intelligent enough to pull it off. And like a good example of that is, again from Bill and Ted, is Napoleon going to a water park named Waterloo. And from the very beginning, they have set up that there is this theme park, this water park in San Dimas called Waterloo. Then we introduce the character of Napoleon. Then Napoleon ends up going to Waterloo to fight the battle, and then he ends up developing his strategy for invading Russia based on the water slides. And it's like all of this is just like a dumb joke about Napoleon going down water slides, but is built upon to when you can execute this stupid joke, and it's brilliant. And Austin Powers is fucking full of those. It's every joke, as we're saying, in every story beat in a movie is based upon setup and execution, right? You have to set your joke up and you have to execute. And like a dumb example, kind of in this movie, but another one that gets played, is the Swedish-made penis enlarger.
Yeah.
Right. Which is just that joke at the beginning with the oh, that's not mine, one receipt for Swedish-made penis enlarger signed out to Austin Powers. No, seriously, that's not my bag, baby. One book, Swedish-made penis enlarger pumps and me, by Austin Powers.
This kind of thing is my bag, baby.
This baby, yeah. But then later on, it comes back as in his suitcase again in Las Vegas. Oh, how did this get here? And then using it again to defeat random task. At the end. It's kind of a dumb, stupid. It's a Swedish-made penis enlarging pump right? It's a fucking dumb joke, but the way it keeps coming back and back and back in new and just to keep reminding you, right? It takes craft and it takes intelligence to keep putting it there. So when Random Task is there at the end and he uses the Swedish, it gives you that satisfaction, the satisfaction that can only come with a Swedish-made penis emoji. But it gives you that satisfaction that wouldn't be there if it only appeared at the beginning and again at the end. You're like, oh yeah, that was the dick joke.
The rule of three kind of thing to come in to be reminded, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so cleverly crafted, this movie, that it's like the judo chop thing as well, right? Austin Powers shouts judo chop like 10 times. And then at the end, when Vanessa shouts judo chop, it's funny because he's been shouting it and you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? So when she does it, it's like, I see, you're delivering on this, on this joke throughout.
Yeah, same with like the dentistry products.
Yes.
Let me guess, the floss is garrote wire and the toothpaste is plastic explosives and the toothbrush is a detonation device. So no, it's actually for your teeth. And then it comes up later when they're trying to escape from that overly elaborate trap.
Yes.
It's like, no, I get it. I have bad teeth. And then they actually do use it in spy-like kind of action tropey ways. Yeah,
yes,
it's great. And I like about with the Swedish-made penis enlarger pump. There's a couple of scenes that I commented on at the time when I was watching it. That one, and when Mustafa gets tipped into the pit. And Will Ferrell is screaming.
I'm not dead, but I'm very badly burned. Yeah.
And there's something that I don't really think movies really do anymore, which this film loves to do, and I think in the sequels they do it as well, where they just let a joke play out for what feels like forever. Like that Swedish-made penis enlarger thing goes on for about a minute, probably, of screen time, which would just not be given to a joke in a modern comedy. And the same thing with the Mustafa thing, like that just keeps going on and on. They keep building on the joke, and then when it finally ends and they move on, there's like that pause of, is this over? Like Dr. Evil actually pauses once the guy comes in and shoots him. It's like, oh, you've shot me. And he goes to move on with the scene. And he goes, you shot me right in the arm. And so just when you think it's over, it keeps going. And that is, it feels classical now, which is silly because it's like 20 years ago.
Yeah, the joke that perfectly sets up the entire movie is just after he's been thawed out from the cryogen, and it's the peeing in the toilet.
Oh, right? I laughed
and
so
that and you're right, because the peeing joke is exactly the same as the Mustafa in the bottom of the pit joke. It's the same joke, right? But the craft of it is so all you do is replace Will Ferrell for piss, which depending upon if you're watching Anchorman 1 or 2, it might go either way anyway. But
that's good.
That was an unnecessary Will Ferrell dig, but I'm going to take it. But it's the same joke, but just perfectly executed both times.
Yeah,
right?
That just makes me smile so much.
Evacuation complete.
Yeah. Just the bit that makes me laugh the most in that sequence, and I think the whole sequence is funny. But the bit that makes me laugh is when he's going for a while, and then he has to lean forward and put his hand on the wall.
He puts his hand on the wall. Yeah.
I don't know why, but that slays me. It's so funny.
What I was thinking watching this, and why this is undoubtedly one of Mike Myers' best, because it doesn't matter who you are, this is going to be one of your best movies. And also he wrote the movie and he's starring in the movie. It's like, as to quote Alexi and Cam on Mike Check, this is one of his auteur movies. Like he is the auteur behind Austin Powers here. But watching Austin Powers this time, I was really captured by the Jim Carrey element that I can see within Austin Powers, that's not, especially in the opening scene dancing through London, right? And his character, kind of as you were saying with the Peter Sellers stuff, the classical comedy, obviously that's calling back to the Beatles as well, and that kind of thing. But his performance is so physical, and the whole movie is calling back to physical comedy, to British physical comedy in its own way. But there's a physical comedy to it that you don't get in Wayne's World, because Wayne's World is, Wayne is, although he's kind of outlandish and over the top for sure, Wayne's World is grounded to a certain extent that Austin Powers isn't. And because the whole movie is over the top, Mike Myers gets to embody that same kind of physical comedy that Jim Carrey does in fucking everything, that became the staple of Jim Carrey's performance, where he would always have that kind of physicality, like leaning in to take the piss, right? That's the physical next step of the joke. The joke is he's taking a piss. The joke evolves when he leans in to really go for it. Then it evolves again when he's tapping his foot on the floor to try and get the last bits out. Right? And it's the way that his physicality ups the joke. It takes the next step, the next step, the next step. And that's that craft of the joke again, right? The joke could have just been he keeps peeing and then he stops, and then he pees, and then he pees. And that would have been fine. But what elevates it is that next leap that he takes into it. And why he is just so phenomenal in this.
Yeah, I like that you brought up Jim Carrey, because there's a certain bit of like Ace Ventura about his performance. I keep thinking about the way Ace Ventura walks with the nod, and compared to the way Austin Powers walks with kind of like a swagger and a bop in his step, and he's pointing, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, there you are. Hey,
do I know you?
But there you are.
There you are. I love that. That is brilliant. That's line.
Great. But then I don't know if you read this, but another interesting Jim Carrey tidbit is that Mike Myers wanted Jim Carrey to play Dr. Evil. That was his first choice. He wasn't planning on playing both characters, but there was scheduling conflict with Liar Liar, so Jim Carrey couldn't do it, and Mike Myers, I presume, thought, well, if I can't get Jim, then I'm just going to do it myself, because it's the only other person he would have trusted to do it.
Yeah, I can see that. Undoubtedly, again, I'm going to feel bad, because I imagine Alexi and Cam would not have missed talking about this on Mike. That's like exactly their kind of thing. But it is interesting that you would do it that way, because Austin Powers is the Jim Carrey-esque character within this, and you couldn't replace Mike Myers as Austin Powers, for sure. But if I'm casting this with Jim Carrey, I don't put Jim Carrey as Dr. Evil, because Dr. Evil is the stilted, not robotic, but obviously he's not fluid, right? Whereas Austin Powers is his body is moves in those more traditional Jim Carrey-esque ways, I would say. So it's interesting to take The Mask and put him in a role where he can't go over the top. He has to contain himself. And
I suppose we'll never know how different Dr. Evil would have ended up being.
No.
They might have really let him go do whatever he wanted.
Yeah. But you again, like you couldn't replace Mike Myers as either of these. When you get to like Fat Bastard and Goldmember, it's like if you wanted to bring somebody else in, it would, especially Goldmember. Like it could have been Jim Carrey would have been perfect for Goldmember, the character of Goldmember. Like that would have just been perfect casting. But yeah, just Mike Myers is he is Austin Powers, and he is Dr. Evil.
Yeah, of course. And then by the time it gets to the second and third films, the in-joke and almost the tradition of it is that he plays multiple characters. He Eddie Murphys it. So then when he do add another character, but then again with like Fat Bastard and Austin Powers, he's harking back to his own kind of upbringing.
Yeah.
Because Mike Myers his parents were from England, when he has Scottish ancestry, so he has a lot of Scottish things, and he loves it. Obviously with Shrek. And have you ever seen So I Married an Axe Murderer?
Yeah.
So he's really playing off of his heritage, and a lot of Austin Powers is based off the English comedies that his dad used to watch and what he grew up watching. And I was just harking back to what you said about Austin Powers being quite reminiscent of the Peter Sellers or kind of classic English styles of slapstick comedy. He even sounds like Frank Spencer from Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. Honestly, baby, it's not mine. Oh, Betty, it's not mine.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of hamming it up in the same way.
Yeah. I think our final thing to bring up was why we decided to do Austin Powers in the first place, and that's because I was talking to you about the absolute plot inconsistencies in Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones. Was it? And I said to you that the the explanation of why and how the bad guys tried to assassinate Natalie Portman in Star Wars 2: Attack of the Clones really harks back to the Scott and Dr. Evil relationship at the end of the movie, where Dr. Evil has got Austin Powers there in his grip. And he's decided to put him into an easily escapable situation. And we get just the brilliant... This is the later bit is the one... this whole scene is like my daddy issues moment within the film, because this is the one that me and my dad will talk about the most, will be the easily escapable situation. Like, my dad will bring up that line all the time, like the idea of putting them into an easily escapable situation. And Scott being like, I'll just go to my room. In my room, I've got a gun. I'll come back and we'll shoot him. We'll do it together. We'll shoot him. It'll be fun. Scott, you just don't get it, do you?
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing about like inheriting the family business. Dr. Evil wants Scott to be an ostentatious supervillain. He doesn't want him to be like how dismissive Dr. Evil is of number 2 and all of the work he's done over 30 years to turn VirtueCon into a hugely profitable, legitimate corporation that makes, what did he say, over $9 billion a year. But Dr. Evil doesn't give a shit. He's just like, yeah, but here's all the elaborate plots that I want to do, and they're like, you can't do that one. The prince at the he does that whole will make it seem like Prince Charles has had an affair and has to have a divorce, and he's like, that already happened. This film came out like right after Diana died, so they had to cut that bit. That bit didn't appear at all.
Okay.
Like, it didn't appear on VHS. It didn't appear until like way later. Which is probably smart, and they think that's part of the reason why this film didn't do so well at the box office, is because like the country was mourning the people's princess, and meanwhile a film comes out about a British caper and silly jokes and whatever. People weren't ready for it. But then the Full Monty came out the same year and did really well, because maybe they had a bit more pathos and a bit more of the people. But anyway, so yeah, as I was saying, so Dr. Evil has no interest in anything beyond the supervillainous. He owns a company that breaks in billions of dollars a year, but he still wants to drill a hole into the Earth's core and set off a nuke that sets off every volcano on the planet, unless he gets $100 billion dollars. And then he says he doesn't care about that. He's going to do it anyway, because what he wants to do is destroy the world, be supervillainous. That's it. And he's not really bright enough to think beyond that. It's just a silly.
No, see, I think it's the opposite. I think what this movie harks back to perfectly is the loss of beauty and artistry for the sake of artistry between the 60s and the 90s. And we get that with Dr. Evil, where what Dr. Evil wants to do is be evil for the art of it. Right? He's got no interest in earning the $100 billion. He just wants to make the governments of the world squirm because they have to get $100 million to pay him off. But he's going to fucking do it anyway. Right? Because the art isn't having the money. The art is holding the world to ransom. And then even when they give you the ransom, you fucking kill the world anyway because you're evil. Right? And we get that same thing with Austin Powers, where it's kind of blown off somewhat. But it's that bit earlier on was like, well, a lot of things in the world have changed, Austin. And Austin's like, as long as I can have lots of, exciting sexual explorations with multiple partners with no protection in a consequence-free environment whilst experimenting with mind-altering drugs, then I'll be just fine. And it's then he can't, and like, well, you can't, only sailors should be using condoms. It's that kind of thing. But Austin Powers doesn't do things like drugs to lose reality, or have sex to lose reality. He does it for the fun of it, for the brightness it brings into the world. And it's the same reason that Dr. Evil does evil things, right? Well, the opposite reason, I guess. But they both do it for the sake of doing it. right? Austin Powers has sex with multiple partners, not because he's a Lothario who wants to brag about it, but because that's his bag, baby. And Dr. Evil wants to destroy the world because that's his bag, baby. Right? Like the money and the status and everything that comes with it is not as important as being true to yourself. And Austin Powers wants to fuck. He wants to take those mind-altering drugs. He wants to experiment. He wants to love his life because that's true to himself. And what Dr. Evil wants to do is be true to himself and cover the cities of the world in molten hot lava or
Liquid
whatever.
hot magma.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. And that's what the other characters in the movie don't have. Right? Like, Vanessa is kind of like... what does she want? Right? She's stuck within the version of herself, the corporate version. And it's not until later on in the movie where she gets drunk with Austin and wants to sleep with him, and he says, I can't, you're drunk. He refuses to have sex with her because although he wants to have sex with her, she wouldn't be doing it for the fun of it, right? She wouldn't be doing it because it's true to herself. She'd only be having sex with him because the alcohol has lubricated her, for lack of a better word. But all of the other characters in the movie require that kind of lubrication that only the injection of Austin Powers and Dr. Evil can bring into their lives, And Vanessa is stuck in her own ways of being the very, I went to Oxford and I studied the languages, and then blah, 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 blah. And Scott is trapped in his, I'm an angsty teenager and I can't be true to myself because what even is the world, man? And then his dad is like, we're gonna blow the world. We're gonna blow it up. Just be evil. Be evil is great. And then on the other side, you've got Austin Powers being like, get out of your shell, get out of your corporate, your
get out of your bloody
Oxford
great
thing.
big nutshell. How did I get into this bloody great big nutshell? What kind of nut has a shell like this?
I tell you what, that was this will be my final reference back to Alexi and Cam and Mike Check. But after listening to all of those and rewatching them all, this was 2017, I guess, 2018. I was listening to them all in China when I was it was this time because it was Chinese New Year, and I was in China. And Chinese New Year is a time in China where everybody leaves, right? So you live in a city, and then everyone in the city leaves the city to go back to the areas where their family are from. And because so many people have come from the countryside, you'll find like the city streets just become empty. There's just nobody there because everyone's gone back to different family homes and stuff. So it gets very lonely if you're there without friends or anything because everyone's gone. So I was there for like a month on my own in China, just listening to all of the Mic Check podcasts and stuff. And then when I went back to the UK later on, my brother said, in just a random conversation, my brother went, well, that's you in a nutshell. And it was like... it was like there was not a moment of conversation that I was more prepared for, thanks to Alexi and Cam and Mike Check, than well, that's just you in a nutshell. And nobody appreciated my acting out of, no, this is me in a nutshell. Help, I'm in a nutshell. How did I get into this? Nobody else appreciated it, but I thought that it was wonderful. So I've always got Alexi and Cam to thank for that wonderful moment there.
Perfection, yeah. I mean, I wish I was there. I would have definitely appreciated it.
Thank you.
Off the cuff.
Yeah. That's a good talk about Austin Powers. I feel we've covered a lot. Do you have any final thoughts on Austin Powers?
I do. I have one thing that I thought about. Do you think that Austin Powers is analogous to Captain America?
Because they were both... Both of them bring their own values from their own time into the present day because they were frozen?
It's pretty weak, I know, that they are both frozen in their own time, one voluntarily, one not so, and then they are thawed out in the quote-unquote modern day and have to adapt to modern society and struggle to a degree and have to change. Cap has to write a list of of modern things that he has to learn about in order to be caught up on history. And Austin Powers actually watches a video of everything that he's missed. And who would have thought Liberace was gay?
Yeah.
I mean, women loved him. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Oh, and they also have to, even though they've been frozen all this time, they have to fight the nemesis that they were fighting when they were frozen.
Do you know what?
Dr. Evil and the Red Skull are basically the same person.
Do you know what it sounds like to me? You are absolutely ready for your bachelor's in film studies.
Am I really? Is that what
It sounds like to me you need to write this essay, and then you need to write the essay representation of women within the Austin Powers trilogy, because between these two, a comparison of Austin Powers and Captain America Frozen in Time and the representation of women inside any given film franchise, you're ready for your bachelor's in film studies.
Do you think I could just write the essay and I'll give it to you to make sure it's good first, and then I'll just send it off to a university and be like, I'll have a bachelor's, please?
I reckon you could quite easily just prepare your essays beforehand and then go in, and then just when they go, okay, what's the deadline? Here it is. And then they'll be like, oh, do you have the next 3 years written? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I'm an adult now. Like, I came prepared. I'm not 18. Yeah. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm not 18, but I am an idiot.
I think you would have been wonderful at film studies. Although we did screenwriting, so it's not all that different.
We basically did a film studies degree. We just didn't learn how to make a film.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing at all. But then I briefly did a what was it called back then? An AS level in film studies at college. But I quit it after the first year because we watched Thelma and Louise like that's an exaggeration. We watched Thelma and Louise like 4 times, and I was like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I wanted at all.
You wanted to watch Thelma and Louise 20 times.
Yeah.
Well, we need to watch it more.
All I remember from that year is watching Thelma and Louise a bunch of times. What mise en scène is, and that one of the kids in the class was called Darwin, and I thought that was really interesting.
Was it because that was also your favourite X-Men? So you kept like throwing him into a volcano to see if he'd adapt and stuff like that.
To see if he became magma, liquid hot magma.
Yeah. Okay, final thing for Austin Powers, quickly. How does the relationship between Scott and Dr. Evil reflect on your own relationship with your father?
I hadn't given this much thought until you were asking me this question, and I've just had an epiphany. The relationship between Scott and Dr. Evil would be a lot more relatable to me if you flipped them around, so that the father figure was the one who was very logical and saw a path to mending and to succeeding in all their goals, and then the son figure, being me, was the one who all they want to do is, like you said, be evil for the art of being evil. That's it. It's being true to yourself and knowing what you are and just doing that. So I'm Dr. Evil and my dad is Scott, except my dad is not grungy and
no, except for the attitudes are also
the attitudes are switched. Yeah, like neither of us have ever gone, I hate you, and ran out of a room. Not that I remember. I think I've been frustrated with them on occasion, but no, I think I would love to talk to my parents about my teens, because I don't remember being like one of those typical angsty, shouty, you don't know my life kind of teenagers. But I have no recollection of that. But my parents might turn around and be like, oh yeah, you are such an emotional little turd. Whereas my memory is being very like, whatever, it's fine. I guess it's another archetype of teenagerdom, but yeah, no, that's I like that occurred to me in the moment, because I think that's quite poignant. Do you have anything?
No, that's nice.
Anything with yours?
I would say that the relationship between Scott and Dr. Evil isn't so much there, but just the movie itself, as I mentioned earlier on, and the most relevantly is the evolution of the put them in an easily escapable situation scene is the zip it, ship it,
Shush, shush, shush.
yeah.
Which I think was ad-libbed on
that
the day
whole-
as well. I mean, that's genius.
Yeah, that whole sequence is like me and my dad comedy all over, like that kind of thing. Like there's the kind of joke that will come up all the time. So although the relationship between the characters isn't so much of a daddy issues thing, the movie itself and the comedy, the performances, and everything very much is.
I have a follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
You will remember our playlist episode where we each picked songs that made us think of our dads or were reflective of our relationships with our dads.
Yes.
Hypothetical, like movie marathon or say like a triple feature. Would Austin Powers be in the one of the films that would be your daddy issues triple feature?
It would be tight between this and Bill and Ted, probably.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, especially Bill and Ted 2, I think. It would be a tough call. Well, that settles the next episode we're doing, the movie marathon.
Yay!
Job done. That's
Came up with a good
great pitch. Yeah. Well, it won't take us fucking 6 hours. We'll just dive in, talk about them a little bit, talk about why. Similar to our music one, we'll put like the trailers and stuff in there, and yeah, great idea for another episode. Perfect. Quickly, while I have you here, I want to talk
me
about
or like
movie.
the audience.
Both. If you're
Well, I've
here
got
for
you,
Austin,
everyone.
if you're here for Austin Powers, thank you very much for listening this far. Like, subscribe, whatever the fuck people tell other people to do. Because now I want to talk about A Place Beyond the Pines,
Oh yeah.
which is a massive veering off course. This is the movie that I had never wanted to watch. I knew about it, I'd seen trailers, I'd heard about it, and I had absolutely no interest in it whatsoever until yesterday my mum said, let's watch a movie. I said, what movie do you want to watch? She said, oh, well, this one looks pretty good. And I said, I don't know if we should watch that one because I've heard it's like a 7 out of 10. Could have been good, but it doesn't quite hit it there. Doesn't quite hit the mark. You know, we could find, Citizen Kane is literally next to it. Citizen Kane, the Citizen Kane of movies, is literally next to it. Like, we could watch that instead. And she's like, no, I want to watch it. Anyway, my mum is a wonderful person, so we chose to watch what she wanted to watch. I had chosen to watch the recent Invisible Man the night before, so she was well deserved. That's a great movie. Lee Winnell's Invisible Man.
Is that the one with the Elizabeth? What's her
Elizabeth
name?
Moss.
Moss,
Elizabeth
yeah.
Yes, yeah. Awesome movie.
Not the Kevin Bacon one from the turn of the
No,
century.
that's Hollow Man. Come
Hollow
on, get
Man.
your Invisible Men together, Dave. For God's sake. But Invisible Man, great movie, directed by Lee Winnell, just brilliant. One of my favorite movies for a while. So then Mum wanted to watch Place Beyond the Pines, which I had deliberately avoided for a long time because I didn't want to be sad, and I often will avoid movies that I know are going to make me upset. So my ex-girlfriend loved to watch documentaries. Like, it was one of her favourite things to do. I hate watching documentaries because although I know that they will be brilliant, I don't doubt the artistry and I don't doubt that I will learn a lot. Nobody makes a documentary about how happy they were. Right? All documentaries are about how absolutely emotionally crippling the world can be.
Yeah, they kind of shine a light on the murkier parts of things.
Yes, and I try and avoid that because it'll make me sad, and I don't need something else to make me more sad than I already am. So, Place Beyond the Pines was another example of that. So we watched it last night, and I was correct. I think I sent you a message halfway through going, bloody hell, I'm sad.
Yeah.
But it was full of daddy issues moments, and I don't want to watch the movie again, so I don't want to do a full podcast on it. But I just wanted to bring it up because I know you saw it in the cinema. So in terms of daddy issues stuff, I know the movie came out fucking 2012. You haven't watched it in a decade. But is there anything that you remember of that movie?
Yeah, you're right. That was nearly 10 years ago. Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember that Ryan Gosling was hot in it, and this was like the Ryan Gosling hot era.
Yes.
And I think this is off the back of Blue Valentine, which I think was also Ryan Gosling and with the same director.
Yes.
And I think Drive was out around the same time, and there was all these kind of sad Ryan Gosling movies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were probably still at uni or just finished. No, we were still at uni when this came out. So I think I had the what do you call it, the Cineworld Unlimited card, which I rinsed.
So that was fucking
just
beautiful. That thing.
And it's not a surprise that the company's basically gone out of business or shut down 90% of their cinemas because they gave away too much for free. So yeah, I went to see it on the back of all these like arty films that Ryan Gosling was doing. But so I remember. Is this the one where is he in it from the beginning? Okay, so
right.
there's him and Bradley Cooper.
I'll break it down.
Let me see what I remember.
Right.
So it's Ryan Gosling and Bradley Cooper are both the male leads of this movie, but one of them comes in at the same time as one of them dies, and then the second one carries the rest of the movie. So it was always pitched as a Ryan Gosling movie, and Bradley Cooper wasn't quite as huge as he would go on to be. So I think Ryan Gosling was in the first half of the movie, then he fucking falls out of a window or something, and then Bradley Cooper does the rest of the movie on his own with Eva Mendes.
You're close. Okay. The movie's not split into halves. It's split into thirds.
Oh.
Yes, and just in case you didn't think that this movie was fucking long and ponderous enough, the first third is Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling is a carnival show motorbike rider. He does that wheel of death thing, whatever it's called. I think it's called like Handsome Luke, the motorbike rider. Anyway, he's very good at riding motorbikes. Much like he was also much like he was also very handsome and good at driving cars in that movie Drive. So what he decides to do, much like in the movie Drive, is to use his incredible vehicle control skills to begin committing crimes. And he starts robbing banks on the back of his moped. And he's very good at robbing banks until he gets like addicted to the thrill. And to begin with, he's only doing it because Eva Mendes has had a baby with him, but she didn't say anything. And he went away with the carnival, but now the carnival's back in town, and she appears, and it's like, oh my god, I had a baby. He's like, I'm going to stay here, Eva Mendes. And she's like, you don't have any money. I'm dating Mahershala Ali in one of his...
Really?
What must have been... Yeah. The cast for this film is far superior to the film itself. And
I'm looking at it now, actually. Oh, shit.
I blame the director for this because the cast they all deliver fucking great performances, all of them. But the movie itself is just so winding. And I know it's called A Place Beyond the Pines, and the idea is, it's the path that winds through, an endless path that goes through. But your cast, you've got Ryan Gosling. Then Ryan Gosling gets shot and killed by a police officer played by Bradley Cooper, who carries the next bit of the film through, but has to deal with the emotional fact that he just killed Ryan Gosling, who has a son the same age as his son. Right? They both have these baby children, and Bradley Cooper is racked with guilt over having just taken this child's father away from him. Right, which is where the daddy issues elements come in. Like Ryan Gosling is a father who begins committing crimes to get money for his son, who will later be raised by Mahershala Ali, who is also a great father figure in this movie. But Bradley Cooper then has his own son who he's trying to raise with Rose Byrne, who gives the best performance I have seen Rose Byrne give in anything, because normally when I see her give a performance is in like X-Men Apocalypse. And it's like... we're going to go to Egypt and we're going to stop the apocalypse. And it's like, well, why do they keep hiring her? And then I saw A Place Beyond the Pines. I'm like, that's why they keep hiring her, because she's fucking great. She's in like 3 scenes, and she gives the most convincing performance. A great scene with her and Ray Liotta, because also Ray Liotta's in this fucking movie. who again delivers a great Ray Liotta performance, as does Ben Mendelsohn, because Ben Mendelsohn's in this movie. And anyway, so Bradley Cooper's filled with guilt that he killed Ryan Gosling, and Ray Liotta steal blah 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 blah. Then we jump to 15 years later, but no one has aged. It's 15 years later, but Bradley Cooper looks like Bradley Cooper. Eva Mendes looks like Eva Mendes. The only people that have aged are these two babies that were both 1 year old, and it's now 15 years later. So one of them is now Dane DeHaan? Is that the actor's name?
Harry Osborn, yeah.
Yes, this was my point. This is one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up. It is fucking insulting to me that the child of Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes would be an actor so ugly they cast him as a literal goblin.
Oh, Jesus. I'm looking at them all now and I don't understand how that happened.
Granted, he's like a supermodel, right? In that, supermodels, you look at them and you're like, you're not conventionally attractive.
It's like really cut and thin and
yes,
like,
he's got a
dark.
unique face. Dane DeHaan.
Yeah.
So to say he's not ugly, he's unique, right? And that in and of itself is beautiful.
I think I've just remembered some more of this film, and I think I recall that the Dane DeHaan bits of the movie were either my favourites or I thought actually like he was like they were the most emotional parts of the film.
I think that's true. Yes, because the point of Dane DeHaan's character is that he is Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes' child. But Ryan Gosling was killed when he was 1 year old, so he has always been raised by Mahershala Ali and Eva Mendes. Right? And there is this clear fact, of course, that Eva Mendes is Latino, Mahershala Ali is African American, Dane DeHaan is Dane DeHaan. Right? And every time, white boy. Yeah, every time throughout his childhood, he's tried to raise, who was my father. Eva Mendes said, I don't want to talk about it, right? Because for her, it was someone that she really cared about, and then he got shot out a window, and then the person who shot him out of a window came to her house and stole all of the bank robbery money that Ryan Gosling had saved for the child, right? Bradley Cooper came in with Ray Liotta and the corrupt cops and took all of the bank robbery money and took them for themselves because they were crooked cops. And then the Bradley Cooper story is all about trying to fight corruption, but whatever. But the Dane DeHaan storyline is Bradley Cooper's son and Dane DeHaan end up going to the same school. Because of course they do. Because this is the fucking most contrived plot in the history of the world, whereby the man, the son of the man he murdered is in the same school as his own son, and then they become friends, and then they end up committing crimes together, and then one of them ends up bullying the other one, and then he goes to a house party and realizes that the man in whose house he's partying in is the same one who murdered his father, and it's like, fuck you, movie. But the actual performance by Dane DeHaan is really good. And he does a really good job of conveying that emotional turmoil that comes with a man trying to discover himself in a father that he lost, whilst coming to terms with that transition into adulthood that we've spoken about previously, like in Neon Genesis Evangelion and things like that. It's a continuation of those kinds of themes in a really solid performance. And this movie is full of fucking great performances that are far better than the movie deserves. Because, also, we've got that other amazing actor, whose name I can't remember. He's the voice actor of Batman. He plays Captain Pike in the Star Trek
Bruce Greenwood.
Reboot. Bruce Greenwood, yes. Bruce Greenwood's in this movie, and do you know what? Do you know what he does, Dave?
What does he do?
He provides yet another solid Bruce Greenwood performance. You could take Bruce Greenwood. He is. You could take him from almost any of his movies, line them up, and he's giving the same performance as the same character in each movie. And normally, you'd hold that against somebody like De Niro, or a pairing of De Niro and Pesci, right? Where you're like, all you have done is taken the same characters that they played in Goodfellas and put them in Casino. And then all you have done is taken the same characters they played in Casino and put them in, right? But with Bruce Greenwood, you've got your role. He's normally a lawyer or an authoritative tutorative figure. And then you put him in there to be angry about some kind of lawyer-related things, and he's going to give you a solid Bruce Greenwood performance. And he does it again.
He's going to get mad. He's going to get mad at a younger or subordinate person.
Yes.
For not performing as well as they should, or for letting him down. But then he's going to forgive them and give them another chance. And then if it's Star Trek, he's going to die and be a spur on the hero to be the man that he's supposed to be, and make you cry in the process.
Yes. So this is Star Trek. This is The People versus O.J. Simpson, in which he plays the district attorney of Los Angeles, and then it's this movie where he plays the district attorney of New York, I think. And then you could just go on and on with Bruce Greenwood performances. Even in his performance of Batman, it's essentially the same thing. Only he's Batman.
When did he voice Batman?
He was in a lot of the more recent animated movies, like Son of Batman, I think, is a good example,
right.
where the focus is on Damian Wayne and Robin, but Batman is there as a authoritative tutor figure.
Oh.
He's a real also, Bruce Greenwood type.
He's also the CEO guy in iRobot, like that classic Bruce Greenwood role. He's the CEO. Of course.
You know what? So what you do for your movie is you write a Bruce Greenwood role and you put in there, note to casting director, it should probably be Bruce Greenwood. And then he's going to come in and he's going to knock that ball out of the park. A lot of love for Bruce Greenwood. He's great. He's never given a dud performance. And that might be because it's the same performance. But when you've got your niche,
he's figured out how to do it, and he's mastered it, and he gets paid for it. Yeah, he's also in First Blood. Man, I need to rewatch that. I don't remember that.
I bet he's not giving a Bruce Greenwood performance in that. He's probably giving a impaled on a Greenwood spike performance in that one.
Oh, I hope so.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah, jokes.
Anyway. That was pretty much. I just wanted to bring up Place Beyond the Pines to be like, it is another daddy issues movie. There's a lot of
fireworks going off outside my house. I don't know if you can hear that. Oh my god. Yeah, but so could Dane DeHaan and Scott Evil be, the same character?
If it turned out that Ryan Gosling had been frozen in cryogenic gas rather than shot out of a window, then yes,
and then
then that is the narrative.
Then Scott Evil becomes best friends with one of Austin Powers' undoubtedly many illegitimate children. After Austin Powers has killed Dr. Evil, and then whilst at a dinner party at Austin Powers' son's house, Scott Evil sees family photos, or just like. He's got he's been trying to track down who his real dad is, and he's got all these file pictures in one of those manila envelope things, and it's a picture of Austin Powers, and he's like, oh, what's this about? And he's like, oh, I've been trying to track down my real dad, and that might be the real guy, but I can't really find him. And then Scott Evil's like, oh, I know who this is. He killed my dad. Your dad is the guy who killed my dad, and now we can't be friends. And
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm writing Austin Powers 4 right now.
Yes. Yeah, but then what would have really happened would have been, okay, A Place Beyond the Pines is like you put the first Austin Powers movie with the third Austin Powers movie, where you have the development of Dr. Evil and Scott Evil, and then towards 2/3 of the way through, Scott Evil realizes that Dr. Evil and Austin Powers are actually brothers. And then the story, the third act kind of continues from there. And that's kind of that unnecessary, completely unnecessary plot. But yes, A Place Beyond the Pines. I don't know if it is based on a novel, but it feels like it was based on a novel and they couldn't just cut it short.
Yeah, no, I think I remember getting that kind of vibe where it was all so very elongated, and if you were reading it as a novel, I don't know, would it be a page turner or at least be tense?
No,
I'm not really sure.
It does feel like a Jack Kerouac kind of, not Hemingway, or Hemingway-esque, I guess, but those kinds of
modern Hemingway.
stream of consciousness style novels that come out of the American style, where almost a Bukowski, but more gritty and realistic than that, I guess,
Apparently, it's not based on anything. It was written by the director and a couple of other writers.
Right. Yeah. It feels like a movie version of one of those American stream of consciousness books where the plot is not as important as the events. It's a movie driven by events, not driven by plot. And that works nicely for the first 2/3 of the movie. And then in the third movie, it's like, and this is where the plot weaves together. And like, but there wasn't a plot. And so now you're trying to throw this plot together, and it feels it's contrived rather than built upon. It's like the Swedish-made penis enlarger gag. If there had just been like, do you remember the Swedish-made penis enlarger? Because now it's back.
Yeah, you're like, what, that thing from like the first 10 minutes that we haven't seen since.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I remember that. Is that funny? I don't know. But then, like you said earlier, they made it funny by putting it in the right places.
Yes, by
in
having
manner
a
of speaking.
plot. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And your movie can't decide that it has a plot, 10 minutes from the end. So that's
it's like that's your notes to a Derek
that's,
Chan
yes.
France, where we say his name.
Yes, great performances, some good daddy issues moments. Glad we're not doing a fucking 2-hour episode on it, but just wanted to bring it up as an extra tidbit at the end.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Thanks for the trip down memory lane.
Yeah,
to one that was kind of just forgettable, but somehow
forgettable. Yes, I'll always remember Ryan Gosling's for some reason blonde hair.
Yeah, well now I'm always going to remember Ryan Gosling, Eva Mendes's inexplicably unattractive child.
How does that even happen?
Genetic anomalies, they happen.
Do you know what? I looked at the first thing that happened is in this movie is it's Ryan Gosling walking from his trailer to do the carnival performance on the motorbikes, and all the names were coming up, and I was like, oh my god, this cast is just unbelievable. Whoever this casting director is should have won an Oscar, I thought to myself, for having got this cast. And then when I realised that Dane DeHaan was playing the child of Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes, my view on that casting director changed radically.
Yeah. But then I guess he was, again, when did Chronicle come out? Because that was that little indie superhero thing that made him famous. And then they were like, quick, get that kid from that really, that little indie thing that blew up last year. Just get him in it. And, it doesn't matter what he
doesn't matter that he looks like a literal goblin.
And
stick him on a glider and impale Gwen Stacy. That'll do. That's
wait, is that an amalgamation of the Spider-Man and then the Amazing Spider-Man? Because the glider impaled Norman Osborn in the original Spider-Man trilogy, famously. And then Gwen Stacy dies in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
After the Green Goblin, played by famously the love child of Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes, throws her down a chimney or something. God, that movie sucks.
I don't dislike it that much, but then I just watched the first Amazing Spider-Man recently, so the next one is on the to block. Why? What?
Why, of all the movies that you could watch, would you be revisiting Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man?
Because I loved Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man, and I was sad that when they shit-canned and rebooted the series. And we touched on it in a previous episode. Him and Emma Stone's chemistry is great.
Do you think there's enough in there with Martin Sheen to do a Daddy Issues episode on?
I think we need to do a Daddy Issues episode on Spider-Man 1, Amazing Spider-Man 1, and I guess they haven't really touched on it with Tom Holland, have they? But at least
Tony Stark.
Yeah, I suppose. But I think instead of focusing on one Spider-Man film, we could focus on the whole Spider-Man pantheon involved and their relationship with Uncle Ben and involving Tony Stark too.
Well, we've done a Thomas Wayne episode and we've done a Jonathan Kent episode. So let's do an Uncle Ben episode.
Okay, see how many people we get who click on it thinking it's going to be about microwavable rice.
It's about racist rice. That's going to be the quote. Uncle Ben, in brackets, Spider-Man, not racist rice.
Yeah. Every view counts.
I was here for the racism, and all they did was talk about Spider-Man. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to another episode of Daddy Issues. Next week, oh man, we've come up with so many extra episodes in this. This is great. Normally, the end of each episode is what the fuck are we going to talk about next week? You know, it could be anything now. We're on fire.
Could be anything. And also, don't forget to stay tuned for the ongoing Neon Genesis Evangelion series that we'll put out.
Yeah.
As time goes by.
Yeah, last week was episodes 1 to 5 of Neon Genesis Evangelion. Then on Wednesday, last Wednesday, so before this episode was recorded, Dave was like, I have to watch more. I need to get my Evangelion fix. So we've already...
Need to get my
Evangelion. To get his Evangelion. That's good. That's very good. Remember
amazing.
that for our next the next time we record. So that one will be coming out shortly. And yeah. Thank you for listening again.
Thanks everyone. Stay groovy.
Baby. That was creepy. We started doing it at the same time, and I love it.
Love it.
We've got Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone chemistry.
Well, they wish. Maybe they'd still be together if they were as close as we are. Just saying. Okay, bye. Okay, here we go.
Okay, group, we have some newcomers here today with us. Say hello to Scott and his father, Mr.
Evil?
Evil, actually. Dr. Evil.
Can you hear it all right?
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Evil. Hello, Scott.
Hello, everybody.
So, Scott, why don't we start with you? What brings you here with us today?
Well, I just really met my dad for the first time 5 days ago.
I was partially frozen his whole life.
It's so good.
Beautiful.
You could admit
It's so
that.
beautiful.
Admit to that.
He comes back, and now he wants me to take over the family business.
But Scott, who's gonna take over the world when I die?
Listen to the words he used. Who's going to take over the world when I die? Feels like that to some of us sometimes, doesn't it? So, what do you want to do, Scott?
I don't know. I was thinking I like animals. Maybe I'd be a vet.
An evil vet?
No. Maybe like work in a petting zoo.
An evil petting zoo?
You always do that! I just think like he hates me. I really think he wants to kill me.
Now, Scott, we don't want to kill each other in here. We might say that we do sometimes,
No, the
but
boy
we
is quite
really
astute.
don't.
Actually, the boy's quite astute. I really am trying to kill him, but so far unsuccessfully. He's quite wily like his old man.
And that look with a bit of it's like gives him a proud thing and then
Yeah. Bring that up in a
Okay,
minute.
well, we've heard from you, Scott. Now, you tell us a little about yourself.
The details of my life are
Quite
quite
inconsequential.
Oh, no, please. Let's hear about your childhood.
Very well. Where do I begin? My father was a relentlessly self-improving boulangerie owner from Belgium with low-grade narcolepsy and a penchant for buggery. My mother was a 15-year-old French prostitute named Chloe with webbed feet. My father would womanize, he would drink, he would make outrageous claims like
He invented the question mark.
Sometimes he would accuse chestnuts
chestnuts of being
Being
lazy.
lazy.
the sort of general
Malaise.
malaise that only the genius possess and the insane lament. My childhood was typical.
Summers in
So
Rangoon.
Luge lessons.
Luge lessons.
In the spring, we'd make meat helmets.
When I was insolent, I was placed in a burlap bag and beaten with the reeds. Quite the typical. Oh yeah.
At the
Beaten
age
with
of
the reeds.
12, I received my first scribe.
Just quickly, I want to say that the choice of line where he says beaten with reeds, he could have said sticks,
Yeah.
but reeds makes it funnier.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Yes.
At the age of 14, as a roastery named Vilma ritualistically shaved my testicles. There really is nothing like a shorn scrotum. It's breathtaking. I suggest you try it.
You know,
We have to stop.